There is a secret about wealthy people that nobody talks about. They do not actually do anything special with their money. No hidden offshore accounts, no complex derivatives trading, no secret meetings with shadowy financial gurus who whisper stock tips in smoky rooms. The truth is so much simpler and so much more boring that it sounds like a scam when you first hear it. Rich people follow a formula. That is it. A mathematical formula so basic you could teach it to a middle schooler. And the reason most people never build wealth is not because they do not earn enough money. It is because they never learn the formula. Or worse, they learn it and decide it is too simple to actually work. So they ignore it and go chasing something more exciting that inevitably fails. Here is what makes this even more frustrating. The financial industry does not want you to know how simple wealth building actually is. They need you to believe it is complicated. They need you to think you require professional help to manage money. Because if you realize you could do it yourself with a basic formula, an entire industry built on fees and commissions would collapse overnight. So let me tell you about the formula. It is not glamorous. It will not make you rich next week. But it works. And it has worked for decades. And it will keep working long after all the get-rich-quick schemes have faded into obscurity. The wealthy call it different things. Some call it the 702-010 rule. Others use 50 minus 30 minus 20. But the principle underneath all these variations is identical. You split your income into specific categories, and you stick to those categories no matter what. The version that works best, the one that actually builds lasting wealth, breaks down like this. 15% of everything you earn goes toward your future. 65% covers your actual living expenses. 20% is for enjoying your life right now. And that is it. That is the whole formula. 15, 65, 20. Three numbers that separate people who build wealth from people who spend their entire lives wondering why they are always broke despite working hard. But before we go deeper into why this works and how to actually implement it without feeling like you are living in a prison of spreadsheets and deprivation, hit that subscribe button right now. This is Money Trap Channel. We are building a community of people who refuse to accept financial mediocrity as their destiny. We break down the real systems that wealthy people use, not the fantasy garbage that gets sold in online courses. So subscribe, because we are just getting started on this journey. Now let us talk about that 15%. This is the number that does all the heavy lifting in wealth building. This is your future. This is your freedom. This is what stands between you and spending your 70s working a retail job because you cannot afford to retire. But here is what most people miss about this 15%. It serves two completely different purposes, and you need both of them working together. The first purpose is defense. Life is going to punch you in the face. Your car will break down at the worst possible moment. You will get sick. You will lose your job. Your landlord will decide to sell the building, and suddenly you need to move. These things are not possibilities. They are certainties. The only question is when. Without that 15% building a cushion, every one of these punches becomes a financial catastrophe. You reach for credit cards. You take out loans. You borrow from family. And suddenly you are not just dealing with the original problem. You are dealing with debt that follows you around for years. But when you have that 15% working for you, these situations transform from disasters into inconveniences. Your car breaks down and you fix it. You get laid off and you have time to find a good job instead of taking the first desperate option. Your landlord sells and you move without panic. This is not about being rich. This is about having options. And options are what separate people who control their lives from people whose lives control them. The second purpose of that 15% is where things get interesting. This is offense. This is where you start playing to win instead of just playing not to lose. Because that money does not sit in a savings account earning nothing. It goes to work making more money while you sleep. And this is where compound interest becomes the most powerful force in personal finance. Let me show you exactly how insane this gets. Imagine you start investing $300 per month when you turn 25. You find boring index funds that return about 7% annually, which is actually lower than historical market averages. You do this every single month for 40 years until you turn 65. You never get fancy. You never try to time the market. You just keep putting in $300 month after month, like clockwork. By the time you retire, you will have contributed $144,000 total, but your account will be worth over $800,000. Now imagine someone else who waits until they turn 35 to start. They invest the same $300 per month at the same 7% return. They do this for 30 years. They contribute $108,000 total, but their account is worth only about $360,000 when they retire. Same monthly investment, same return rate, but waiting 10 years cost them over $400,000 in wealth. That is not a typo. 10 years of waiting literally cost them more money than they actually invested over 30 years. This is why wealthy people obsess over starting early. It is not about being smart or disciplined or having some special knowledge. It is about understanding that time is the secret ingredient in the wealth formula. Give your money more time to compound, and you can invest less total money but end up with far more wealth. This is math, not magic. But it feels like magic when you see the numbers. So where does this 15% actually go? Because not all accounts are created equal. And this is where most people screw up without even realizing it. The wealthy use tax-advantaged accounts first, always. These are accounts where the government literally gives you a discount on building wealth. In the United States, this means 401k plans and IRAs. In other countries, you have similar vehicles with different names, but the principle is identical. If your employer offers matching contributions on a retirement plan, that is the first place your money goes. Period. No exceptions. No debate. When your company matches your contributions, you are getting an instant 100% return before your money even gets invested. Show me any other investment that doubles your money immediately with zero risk. You cannot, because it does not exist. Failing to capture your full employer match is like finding money on the ground and choosing to leave half of it there. After you max out the employer match, you move to individual retirement accounts that offer tax advantages. You keep filling these up until you hit the annual contribution limits. Only after you have maxed out every tax-advantaged option do you start putting money into regular investment accounts. This is not optional strategy. This is mandatory procedure if you want to build wealth efficiently. And what do you actually invest in once the money is in these accounts? This is where wealthy people do something that disappoints everyone looking for excitement. They buy index funds and go to sleep. That is it. No stock picking. No crypto gambling. No following hot tips from that guy at work who swears he knows which companies are about to explode. Just boring index funds that own tiny pieces of hundreds of thousands of companies all at once. Why does this work? Because you are not betting on individual companies succeeding. You are betting on the overall economy growing over time. And historically, over long enough periods, economies grow, companies fail, industries collapse, new technologies disrupt everything. But the overall market keeps trending upward over decades. By owning the whole market instead of trying to pick winners, you capture that growth without needing to become a financial expert. Plus, these index funds charge almost nothing in fees. And fees matter more than most people realize. A fund that charges 2% annually versus one that charges 0.1% might not sound like a big deal. But over 30 years, that difference can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost growth. The wealthy understand that every dollar you pay in fees is a dollar that cannot compound for you. So they minimize fees ruthlessly. Now let us talk about that 65% that covers your living expenses. This is where most people either win or lose at the money game, because this number has a nasty habit of expanding to fill whatever space you give it. You know exactly what I am talking about. You get a raise at work, and suddenly your current apartment feels too small. Your reliable car starts looking embarrassingly old. That vacation you thought was extravagant last year becomes your new minimum standard. Before you know it, you are earning more money but feeling just as broke as before. Economists call this lifestyle inflation, but I call it the reason most people never build wealth despite earning decent incomes. The 65% cap is your defense against this trap. By setting a firm limit on how much of your income goes to necessities, you force yourself to make conscious choices instead of just spending whatever you earn. Now, keeping essential expenses to 65% of your income is not always easy. If you live in an expensive city, rent alone might eat 40 or 50% of what you make. But here is what constraints do. They force creativity. They force you to find solutions you would not consider otherwise. Maybe that means getting a roommate. Maybe it means a longer commute for cheaper rent. Maybe it means driving a used car instead of financing something new. These are not fun decisions, but they are the decisions that create space for wealth building. And let us be clear about what qualifies as essential expenses. We are talking about housing, transportation, food, utilities, insurance, and other true necessities, not streaming services, not gym memberships, not eating out 5 nights per week. Those are different categories entirely. Housing is usually the biggest piece of this 65%. And this is where people make the most expensive mistakes. Because there is a massive difference between having a place to live and having the perfect place to live. The wealthy often choose to live below their means, especially early in their wealth-building journey. They understand that an extra $500 per month in housing costs translates to hundreds of thousands in lost investment growth over decades. That trendy downtown apartment might feel good now, but your 65-year-old self is going to be furious that you chose location over wealth. Transportation is another area where people hemorrhage money without thinking. The average car payment in America is now over $700 per month. That is insane. You are paying $700 every month for something that loses value the moment you drive it off the lot. Meanwhile, a reliable used vehicle might cost you half that. And that $350 difference invested over 10 years at reasonable returns becomes over $70,000. Suddenly, that new car smell does not seem worth it anymore. Food spans the range from genuine necessity to pure entertainment. You need to eat. You do not need $15 avocado toast or take out 5 nights per week. The wealthy cook at home more often. They treat restaurants as occasional experiences rather than default options, not because they cannot afford it, but because they understand opportunity cost. Every dollar spent on convenience food is a dollar that could be compounding for their future. The goal is not deprivation, it is intention. You are being deliberate about spending in these fundamental categories, so you create room for both wealth building and enjoyment. Which brings us to that final 20%. And this might be the most important part of the entire formula, even though it is the piece people feel guilty about. This is your permission slip to enjoy life without sabotaging your financial future. 20% of your income goes toward entertainment, hobbies, impulse purchases, and whatever else brings you joy. This is not optional. This is mandatory. Because people who try to save every possible dollar end up burning out and abandoning their financial plans entirely. It is like trying to stick to an impossibly strict diet. Eventually, you crack and binge on everything you have been denying yourself. The 20% rule prevents this financial binge and purge cycle. When you know that 20% of your income is designated for fun, you can spend that money guilt-free. You are not stealing from your future. You are following the plan. This psychological piece is crucial because building wealth is a marathon that lasts decades. You need a system you can actually maintain for that long, not a perfect system you abandon after 6 months. Research backs this up. People who give themselves spending flexibility are significantly more likely to stick with savings goals over the long term. It is counterintuitive, but allowing yourself to spend money actually helps you save money. This 20% covers everything from daily coffee rituals to shopping sprees to actual vacations. The key is that it is intentional spending, not accidental overspending followed by guilt. Here is where most people mess this up. They either skip this category entirely and try to save everything, which leads to burnout, or they treat every purchase as falling under the 20% umbrella, which defeats the entire purpose. The wealthy are disciplined about this boundary. When the 20% is gone for the month, it is gone. They do not borrow from next month, and they definitely do not dip into the 15% that belongs to their future. Now let us address the elephant in the room. If you are currently spending 90% of your income just to survive, this formula might feel more insulting than helpful. And I get it. Hearing about wealth-building systems when you are already stretched thin can feel like being told to just stop being poor. But here is the thing about financial transformation that nobody tells you. It does not happen overnight, and it does not require perfection from day one. If you cannot do 15% right now, start with 5%. If 65% for essentials seems impossible, aim for 75% and work your way down. The specific numbers matter less than developing the habit of living within intentional boundaries. Once you prove to yourself that you can stick to whatever percentages you choose, you can gradually adjust them toward the full system. And here is what makes this formula so powerful. It scales with your income. When you get a raise or promotion, the dollar amounts in each category increase, but the percentages stay the same. This is how you capture the benefits of earning more without falling into the lifestyle inflation trap. Your fun money increases. Your wealth building increases. Your standard of living improves. But you maintain the discipline that builds long-term financial security. Most wealthy people did not start out wealthy. They started as regular people who stumbled across systems like this and had the discipline to stick with them long enough to see results. The difference between them and everyone else is not intelligence or luck or secret knowledge. It is consistency and patience. They did boring things consistently for decades while everyone else chased excitement and ended up with nothing. So there you have it. The money formula the rich use is not hidden in some vault. It is not taught in secret seminars. It is just basic math wrapped in discipline. 15% for your future. 65% for essentials. 20% for life. Start with whatever version you can manage. Be consistent and let compound interest do what it does best. Your future self will either thank you or wonder why you waited so long. Thanks for sticking with us through this. If you found this valuable, make sure you check out the next video that is about to pop up on your screen. We are going even deeper into how money actually works when you stop believing the lies. This is Money Trap Channel, and we will see you in the next one.